Last one, lesson 4. This is going to be on class Herodinia in phylum Annelida. This is going to be the leeches. So without further ado, it's the leeches. All right, our last group here. This will be lesson 4, the class Herodinia, the leeches. So let's go ahead and get her finished. Here's another picture of a wonderful leech. The leeches, they are also hermaphroditic, which means there are no males or females, just like the earthworms. They just are. So every leech on the planet is a possible mate for any other leech of their species. Most are aquatic, so they swim instead of burrow. And if you've ever seen a leech, they have kind of an up and down swimming motion. So imagine how a fish swims and the tail goes side to side. The leech's body it worms, for lack of a better term, up and down. And that's how they will swim through their aquatic environment. When they are on land, they will move similar to an inchworm. Now, the reason they do this is, I'm sure you probably know that leeches have an oral sucker. So they have one at the front of their body, but they also have a sucker on the end of their body. So they can attach with both ends of their body. And when they move on land, they want to go forward. Then they reach out with the oral sucker and they grab a hold while the posterior sucker is holding on. And then when the front end grabs a hold, they let go with the back end and bring the back end up next to the front end, and hence the inchworm kind of locomotion. Now, not all leeches are bloodsuckers. All right. So here is a leech. This one is consuming an earthworm. So it has found the earthworm and has grabbed a hold of it there at the front end and is swallowing that dude whole. So not all are bloodsuckers. The majority of 500 or so eat worms, invertebrate larvae, fish, and amphibian eggs. So again, not all leeches are parasites. Leeches are a lot of times very host specific. Not all leeches, if you find yourself in the water, not all leeches are going to latch on to you that may be in that body of water. Some are very specific to the species that they want to drink their blood. I know when I took invertebrate zoology, my invertebrate professor was talking to us about we were down looking for invertebrates in some pond somewhere, and we pulled up some leeches, and the ones that we had, he proceeded to tell us only parasitized turtles. So that's pretty specific. And here's one on a frog. Even feeding on other leeches. So there are leeches that parasitize other leeches. So there they've come full circle. Some do feed on the blood of mammals, and they will, if a mammal finds its way into the water, the leech will grab a hold and will eat, dying on the blood to their heart's content. They also have been used, and in some places are still used today, for medical reasons. And they have found that after surgery, a few leeches attached near the surgical wound can really reduce swelling, and that they are pretty beneficial. Number one, they're eating blood that's going to be pooling in that area. But the other thing is, in their saliva, they have an anticoagulant. So, which makes sense as a parasite. You don't, when you finally find a host and you cut a hole in their skin, you don't want their blood to clot, and then that dries up your food source. So their saliva contains an anticoagulant that prevents blood from clotting, so that wound will bleed freely until the leech lets go. And then as the wound bleeds for a little bit after the leech is gone, it flushes out the anticoagulant, and then the blood will clot and the wound will heal. They really are. I know it's kind of gross to think about, but they really are harmless, except for the little wound they give you and the blood that they take. They're not as bad as you would imagine. So here, this guy's had surgery, and they have these actually called medicinal leeches, attached and sucking blood to reduce the bruising and the post-operative swelling. They were used to treat a variety of human ailments at one time, not so much anymore, but they were used quite a bit. They can pierce or cut the skin without being noticed, which makes sense. If they were incredibly painful, then you would notice that they're biting you and you would pull them off. But there's a mild anesthetic in their saliva as well, so that their bite goes unnoticed, and they can go ahead and eat your blood without you knowing it. That's their goal, which again, makes sense. So I will post, these are links to a pair of videos that show medicinal leeches. And one was on this cat who had surgery on its paw, and the circulation was not very good, and they were afraid they were going to lose the paw, and so they put leeches on the cat, and you see what happens. You'll have to watch and see what happens. So I will post the link in Schoology to these videos, because you watching the YouTube, you can't click the link. So I will post the link later. And then the other one is just how much blood will a leech eat before it gets its full and lets go. And that is the answer to that question in that video. Leech circulation, they have a closed circulatory system, just like all the other members of phylum Annelida. They have a low metabolic rate. And for a parasite, this is a good thing, because you never really know when your next meal will come along. So that low metabolic rate means they can go a long time in between meals. Their circulatory system matches their slow metabolism. So they don't pump blood through their body very quickly. In many, there are no blood vessels. So they have some of them have their blood stays in their body cavity. It doesn't leave the body cavity, but it stays in there and is mixed with what is called a coelomic fluid. And then that fluid contains hemoglobin. And as hopefully a lot of you know, hemoglobin is the pigment, the iron-containing pigment found on our red blood cells that carries oxygen to our tissues. And this coelomic fluid containing hemoglobin will do the same thing as blood does in our bodies. Their nervous system is very simple. I'm sure that is no surprise. Just like the earthworms, they have mechanoreceptors that respond to water currents so that they can feel when a possible meal goes by, and several pairs of eyes on the first segment to detect shadows. So if they're in the light and all of a sudden there's a shadow cast over them, then that tells them, hey, something's coming. I better get ready to latch on and find a meal. They also have chemoreceptors and temperature receptors. So the chemoreceptors is their sense of smell. And if they are going to parasitize warm-blooded creatures, then a temperature receptor will come in handy, because they can tell if something has heat out in front of them. And that allows them to find the warm-blooded prey much easier. Their reproduction, as we said earlier, they are also hermaphroditic, which means there are no males, there are no females. They just are. They contain both. Some deposit spermatophores on the bodies of their mates, and the sperm will bore through the integument. So that seems a little harsh, but that's the way they do their thing. Others show internal fertilization, and they will lay eggs in a cocoon. And here's a wonderful picture of a leech cocoon with a bunch of little baby leeches coming out of there. And as you can see, it's not very big because here's the guy's thumbnail. So those are really, really small. The cocoon full of eggs will be deposited on land with some bacteria for the young leeches to feed on. All right, and that is going to be the end of all the lecture material for phylum Annelida. All right, that's going to wrap up not only lesson 4 in phylum Annelida, but it's also going to wrap up all of the lecture material for this unit. And that means we should be getting close to our unit assessment or test. And I know what you're thinking. It appears that I've been wearing the same clothes through all of these video lessons. And I am, because I did all of these in one day here on home quarantine. So just remember that. Talk to you later.